Hey guys, Superstar0717. I have the RUG Werewolf deck that I played in last night's FNM. Now this isn't going to be the list that I played last night. This is going to be the list after the changes that I made. And we'll talk about some of the changes that I made. Now the mana base that I was working on with the last deck tech was pretty good. I changed it by, I believe it was 2 or 3 lands, just to fit it just a little bit better to what I was playing with. And I'm going to be testing that coming up here next Wednesday, possibly. If not, it'll just be at just like a regular FNM. So, without any further discussion, so we're still playing with 4 Delver Secrets. The creature lineup has stayed exactly the same, so 4 Delver. This card won me a bunch of games, just being able to get in there over the top against a lot of games. Turn 1 Delver, if you can flip it, you usually almost always win. Especially against other Delver decks, because you have the counter backup, and instead of Vapor Snag, you pack Galvanic Blast, which is a lot better of a card, in my opinion, for the versatility that is. I played 3 games last night in the tournament, and then 1 game in top 4, and Delver won me a bunch of those. We'll go over the matchups here in a second. So we have the 4 Delver. Up next, the 4 Snapcaster Mage. The 4 Snapcaster Mage was absolutely fantastic. Snapcastering back Burn was just like amazing all day, and just being able to flash back the Snapcaster Mage, burn them, and then next turn have an attacker was just amazing all games long last night. So up next, still the 4 Huntmaster. So once again, creature lineup's exactly the same. Huntmaster put in a lot of work for me, won me a bunch of games by himself. If you can drop a Mayor of Avabruck won me a bunch of games last night. If you can drop a Mayor of Avabruck early and protect it, you're almost always going to win. And if you can drop him late and your opponent top decks a land, say like turn 7 or turn 8, you will literally, I mean, it's just so awesome from there. Your werewolves will flip. You can, manipulate your graveyard with Snapcaster Mage to make them flip again. Just different things like that, just to gain you some advantage. A lot of times when I was playing yesterday, late in the game, turn 6 and turn 7 and turn 8, my opponent would have maybe 1 card in his hand, 0 cards in his hand, and I would have 3 or 4 cards in my hand just from Ponders and Desperate Ravings and things like that. And so that's really one of the huge advantages of this deck, is that you have a lot of gas in the deck. You can really, really outlast your opponents. In just about every matchup, maybe not blue-black control, but other than that, just about every matchup. So up next, the 3 Huntmaster the Fells. Just money all day, probably one of the best cards in the deck. Just being able to throw it down there turn 4 if you have it, and then protect it with counter backup and burn is amazing. One of the things I really like about this deck is that it doesn't auto-lose to Mirran Crusader, which is really nice, and that it can effectively deal with threats such as Olivia Valderon, which I'm starting to see some play with at my locals. A lot of people are starting to catch on to how good it is. And play different variants of vampire decks. So being able to just get rid of her with some of the burn spells as well is just really nice. So 3 Huntmaster of the Fells. Now onto the non-creature spells. So we're playing with 4 Ponder still. Now the Ponder is really good. Just being able to set up your Delvers, to set up your plays for later, to dig for that extra land is really nice. Being able to keep maybe like 1 or 2 land hand with a Ponder and play it and search for that extra land or that creature that you need, like a Delver, is just really nice, really versatile, and it's a great card. And up next, we're running 2 Vapor Snags. Not the best card in the deck. I think Galvanic Blast is far, far more superior. However, I did manage to win a couple games because of the bounce effect, and I won 1 game against blue-black zombies. With that 1 damage, I was able to Brimstone Volley for 5 damage, and had enough mana. It was a really kind of like a grindy game. I was able to then flash in a Snapcaster Mage and pay the mana, so I had 8 mana on the board, which is a lot. Usually I don't like to play that much mana, but I wasn't really drawing anything, and I wanted to have every option available if I drew into a couple of Snapcasters to be able to flash back certain burn spells. And I knew I really just needed that. It was a really slow game for both of us. So the Vapor Snag got in there, and just being able to Snapcaster and bounce cards like Wormcoil, because they don't really have any immediate utility when they come on the board, is really nice. Up next, 4 Galvanic Blast. You have no chance of Metalcraft in this deck, really, even in the sideboard. And so Shocks will do the job just as well. I just like the artwork on Galvanic Blast a little bit better. And, that's just player preference. 2 damage, takes out a lot of creatures in the format that you want to, get rid of. And so it's been working out really well. And also the 2 damage and then being able to Snapcaster and do another 2 is just really nice. Obviously, it's not the most mana-efficient way to win, but it gets the job done. So up next, 4 Incinerate. 3 damage is really huge. You can literally take out just about every creature in the metagame without any bonuses, except for, of course, the Titans and Elish Norn. But there's really no burn spells that just directly get rid of them. Maybe Beast Within, but we'll get into that discussion a lot later, as that's a popular card that's coming up in the discussion for this deck. But 4 Incinerate is really good. You can get rid of most utility creatures, get rid of Mirran Crusaders, get rid of Olivia Volderons, assuming they don't pump it. Just a bunch of awesome things that you can do with this card. It puts in a lot of work, and 3 damage is huge. Once you get your opponent down to like 11 or 12 life, from there with a Delver on the board, maybe a Huntmaster, and a couple Snapcasters in hand, you can really just burn them to death from there, especially with Brimstone Volley. Really brings their life total down quite fast. So up next, 2 Desperate Ravings. Not yet considering the 3rd. I think I'm over my initial hate for this card, as it has won me quite a few games, and just the advantage that it gives you being able to draw 2 cards, 2 fresh cards if you start holding your mana, is fantastic. In that game where I had 7 or 8 lands down, I had I had 2 lands in hand. When I drew the 2 cards, I discarded one of those lands, and I drew into another land, and so I flashed it back, and I drew another 2 cards and discarded another land, and I had 3 fresh burn spells, and I flipped my Huntmaster to give me 2 life and a wolf token, which was fantastically awesome. So Desperate Ravings got in there for me. I like it because it's a 1-card way to flip your werewolves if you have enough mana. If you have 5 mana, you can flip your werewolves and get your wolf token and get your 2 life. Which is really good because it's basically 5 mana, draw 4, discard 2, gain 2 life, and a wolf token, if you really think about it. Up next, 4 Mana Leak. Obviously, we are running a blue deck, and Mana Leak is one of the best blue cards in the format right now. So you really need the 4. And there's just really nothing else to say about it, just 4 Mana Leak. Really good, stops everything in the format, basically, if they can't pay for it. And the last 2 cards, 2 Brimstone Volley. This card has just been fantastic for me. Snapcaster Brimstone Volley is probably one of the dirtiest tricks you can do. And obviously there's multiple tricks that you can do with this card. And it has just won me, probably, not really in the tournament. I didn't really shine too much with it. I didn't really use it too much. However, it did win me, it did help me win at least the blue-black zombie deck. Obviously, I was telling you guys a little bit earlier. And it won me the match against Wolf Run Ramp. I was able to double Brimstone Volley off of a Snapcaster because he nuked the Snapcaster with the Inferno Titans effect. And, obviously I would have blocked anyways. And so Brimstone Volley is fantastic. 5 damage for 3 mana is just stupid efficient. And so running that. Now on to the lands. Now, here's where the major changes are. So we're running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 islands. Now, in the first list, or not the first list, but the more recent list, I was running 6 islands. And I had some trouble with turn 1 plays, i.e. Ponder, Delver of Secrets, and Vapor Snag. So I went ahead and upped it to 1 island, 1 island more, just to give me that, more consistent way to drop those turn 1 plays. Now, the next change in the mana base, we're running 1, 2, 3 mountains. Now, before we were running 2 mountains, but we went ahead and upped to 3. I had a lot of games where either I had multiple burn spells in hand, or like a burn spell and Desperate Ravings. I didn't have the red mana to cast them both, which was a little frustrating. Obviously, it didn't affect me too much, as I went 3-1, losing in the top 2. But the 3 mountains are really crucial, and so I upped it to 3. Just to give me a little bit better of an option. Up next, 2 forests. We dropped 1 forest for the 3rd mountain, And we did that because we're still running Hinterland Harbor and Copperline Gorge. Obviously, we can still hit the turn 2 green in multiple ways. But I just felt that I wanted a little bit more burn, since I am running much more burn, or excuse me, much more red, because I am running much more burn spells and things like that. So that's 2 force. Sorry about that. Now for the non-basic lands, we're running 3 Copperline Gorges, really crucial for the deck. It's the only non-basic land that we have that comes into play tapped. And so we definitely want to run that, as the advantage that it gives is huge. Obviously you'll have turns where later in the game it'll come into play tapped, but it still gives you red mana after that, the next turn, which is invaluable for this deck. So the 2 Copperline Gorges. Up next, we drop 1 Hinterland Harbor to go down to 3. 3 Hinterland Harbor is really good, another way to get that turn 2 green mana, which is really nice. As well as, worst case scenario, it can come into play tapped and then tap for a ponder, which can dig you into some very crucial lands. Obviously just basic utility. So the 3 Hinterland Harbors. And 2 Sulfur Falls. Now, I'm not 100% sure that I want to go 2 Sulfur Falls and 3 Hinterland Harbors. I may end up going 3 Sulfur Falls and 2 Hinterland Harbors, because once again I am running more red than green. However, I do like dropping Mayor turn 2 better. If I had the choice between Mayor turn 2 or Incinerate turn 2, I would definitely always go with the Mayor. And that's why we're running the Hinterland Harbor at 3 and this at 2, just to make sure that we always have the mana open for that. And so the 2 Sulfur Falls has been working out really well, though. At least today I played a couple matches in the testing of that. And the last and probably most important land of the deck, 3 Evolving Wilds. Just being able to search up any land that you don't have, or to just have more of that land. For example, in this deck, you can really never have enough red mana on the field. And so being able to search your deck for that extra mountain, or maybe you need that extra forest, or maybe you need an island to turn on your dual lands. Taking a turn off to search that is awesome. Having an Evolving Wilds in hand with like a Sulfur Falls and a Hinterland Harbor is really good. You can search your deck for a island, and then pretty much continue normally from there. Obviously you'll be taking your first turn off, which is bad, but it's not horrible. Obviously we lose that Jataxian Probe turn 1 play with that. But obviously, we've moved on from Jataxian Probe and ran some other burn spells. So that is the deck. Real quick, let me just go over my matchups real quick. And I'm not obviously going to read everything to you. I will put a link to the post that I put on Magic the Gathering Salvation. So let me just give you guys a Huntmaster and a Snapcaster Mage to look at while I go ahead and talk about this, so you're not staring at a blank playmat. So, match 1, I played against Blue-White Drog Skull Delver. And sorry if I keep coughing or clearing my throat, I'm feeling a little bit under the weather today. Match 1, I played against Blue-White Drog Skull Delver. Game 1, I started off with a win on the dice roll, rolled a 19, which is an awesome way to start off your FNM, rolling a huge number on the first turn. And I played a turn 1 Delver and a turn 2 Mayor. He also played a turn 1 Delver and a turn 2 Jataxian Probe, which kind of hurt because he knew exactly what my hand was. And he bounced my flip Mayor with a Vapor Snag. And so eventually we just kept, trading back and forth until I drew into a Huntmaster and was able to cast it. And I was able to capitalize off that and ping off his Delvers and his Spirits. He never really got a Drog Skull to kind of stick on the board. Every time he summoned one, I was able to just Galvanic Blast it or Incinerate it, because I hate the Drog Skull Phantasmal Image or Drog Skull combination. And eventually I was able to go to work with my Huntmaster, and he did tap it down with the Dungeon Geist, but once again, he got hit with an Incinerate, and it was pretty much a good game from there. Game 2, he got off to a pretty good start, and he somewhat, looked like he was going to win the game for a while. But I went ahead and stabilized off of a Blasphemous Act, which was from the sideboard. And I killed my own Flip Delver, which was unfortunate, but I followed it up with the Mayor of Avabruck immediately after that, and stabilized from there with the wolf tokens that it produced, since his hand was pretty gassed after that. So, match 2, I played against Blue-Black Zombies, and this was not a traditional zombie deck. It was very, I guess you could say rogue. It was like a blue-black zombie deck that ran Ratchet Bomb's main board, Treasure Mages to search out Worm Coil Engines. It was a very interesting deck. Very, very interesting deck. And so when I was playing it, he used, let's see, yeah, he used his Ghoul Caller's Chant to abuse Snapcaster Mage. What it does is for 1 black, you can get a creature from your graveyard to your hand. And so he was able to abuse the Snapcaster Mage, Undying Evil, to some huge advantage. And this was a game where the Desperate Ravings allowed me to draw 4 cards and discard 2 lands, and flip my Huntmasters and things like that. And it was a mill deck with a, I think it was an Undying Alchemist. It's the 4/2 that mills whenever it does combat damage instead of damage. And it puts a token into play for every zombie. So he had me down with 3 cards, and I had 2 Brimstone Volleys in the grave. Or actually 1 in hand, and I was able to double Brimstone Volley and then Vapor Snag for the win. Game 2, I overcommitted and got hit with a Black Sun Zenith, and I was able to come back with a Thrun and a Snapcaster Mage for the next couple turns, and pretty much win that. Match 3, I played Wolf Run Ramp, and my opponent got, or excuse me, I got a turn 1 Delver flip, and a turn 2 Mayor. And from there, turn 3, he tried to Slag Storm me, which, you know, obviously my board was kind of getting out of hand, and he couldn't really stop the flyers. And I mana leaked that, which was like the best feeling ever. Or maybe it was a turn 4 Slag Storm. Yeah, turn 4 Slag Storm, which I mana leaked. And from there, he really didn't have any answers. He, you know, played his Solemn Simulacrums and things like that in his Rampant Growth. But he couldn't capitalize, and the Delver just got in there for too much damage. And I was able to obviously just burn him for the win. Game 2, I kept a really bad hand, which I probably should have mulliganed. He pretty much capitalized on that with a turn 4 Primeval, a turn 5 Primeval, and a turn 6 Inferno, which was just stupid crazy. And I pretty much just scooped it up after I saw the 3rd Titan. Game 3, the deck was absolutely flawless. I got the turn 1 Delver and plenty of counter backup in my hand. He brought me down to 7 life, and you know, it was unfortunate, but the Snapcaster Mage really got in there with the Brimstone Volley twice to give me the victory, and pretty much stole that one from me because I really thought he was going to take it with the Titans from there. And at that point, I was 3-0, and it was a short tournament. There was only like maybe 20 people there, if that. Usually we have like 35 people at the FNMs. And so instead of a top 4, we did a top 2. And I played red-green aggro in the, which is basically the same deck almost. I don't know her name exactly, but out of Grand Prix Baltimore, there was a red-green aggro. And this deck to me seemed almost to be an exact copy. I think the swords they were running were a little bit differently, just for budget issues. But turn 1, he got a Llanowar Elves, turn 2, Strangleroot Geist, and then turn 3, Green Sun Zenith for another Geist. And aggro is honestly one of the worst matchups for this deck, and not specifically aggro, but just aggro with haste and undying, i.e. Strangleroot Geist. You really can't deal with that card. You can Vapor Snag it, but it's pointless. I'll just bring it out. You can, 2-for-1 it, which at that point you might as well just scoop anyways, because you're paying a lot of mana to just get rid of 1 creature, and they have 4 of them in their deck. And so, game 1, I got ran over by Strangleroot Geist. And then game 2, I took a really, really bad mole down to 5. My 5 hand was not very good, but I had a mana leak and 2 lands, and that was pretty much the entire game. And he was able to get another 2 Strangleroot Geist and finish it off with the Hellrider, which also has haste, and pretty much just scooped from there. There's nothing I could do. So I got second placed, and obviously, the deck that I just showed you guys reflected all the changes that I made for that. Now I'm still working on the sideboard. I honestly, I have an idea of what I want to do with the sideboard. The sideboard that I played at the FNM was not very good, and we'll go over that in the next couple videos when I start to figure out exactly what I want to do with that. But that's the deck. Thanks for watching, guys. Rate, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think about this list. It's running extremely well. Sooner or later I'll probably go back to aggro mono green werewolves. But for now I'm having a blast playing with this deck. It's really fun. If you haven't seen the Cockatrice match that I put online, go ahead and check it out down below. There'll be all 3 videos of that. And thanks for watching, guys. Rate, comment, subscribe. Peace.